'Twas brillig and the slimy toes did gyre and gimble in the wave. All mimsy were the wardrobes and the moonlights out crave. This ain't your grandmother's Alice. And welcome to Wiggy Reviews. I'm Wiggy and I review books. Today is a special episode in that it is a brand new book review. That's right, this is a book I have not read, and it's March. This is the first Saturday of the month, and I figured time to get a new book in on these reviews. So here we go. Today we are looking at a reimagining of a classic. Yeah. We're looking at Alice by Christina Henry. I'm not gonna lie, I am one of those people who was obsessed with Alice in Wonderland as a kid, and a little bit into my forever, actually. I've been kind of obsessed with it forever. The classic story of a girl who falls into Wonderland and just kind of witnesses all this madness and things that don't make sense, but it's orderly in their world, but not really orderly. Whatever. Also, I apologize for my hat. I don't have a Mad Hatter's hat. This is the closest I could get to it, and I thought, whatever. It's crazy looking, so... Anyway, so, Christina Henry is continuing the tradition of reimaginings of classic stories, which can be good or bad. An example of someone who's done reimaginings very well has been Gregory Maguire, and if you don't know him, he was the guy who wrote the Wicked book, which became a Broadway musical, and has been teased to be a movie forever and ever, but never will be, I don't think. But he's an author who is very good at reimagining classic fairy tales. Alice in Wonderland is one of those fairy tales that many, many people try to reimagine. And this is just another example, and so we are going to take a look, and I will tell you what I thought of this. So this Alice in Wonderland retelling is grittier, it's darker, and it's not so much taking place in Wonderland, per se. We are in a universe where there are two cities. There's the new city and the old city. And the new city is, of course, the wealthy, elite folks who keep to themselves and are very wanting to keep the rabble out of their city. The old city, of course, is the poorer city, and it is overrun with gangs. So, the book opens with our titular character, Alice, in the madhouse. So, she was found wandering the streets, covered in blood, a huge scar on her face, carrying or bleeding from her lower extremities as well as from wounds, and her memories are gone. She can't remember what happened to her, and she is taken to the madhouse, and flashes of what happened keep appearing. She remembers a rabbit, she remembers blood, and that's kind of it. She befriends her neighbor, her cell neighbor, who is known as Hatcher, who was put into the loony bin after he was found with an axe, a bloody axe, and after he had apparently killed, I don't think they said a number, but it was a lot of people. So these two become friends through a mouse hole in their wall, and Alice wakes up one day and the asylum is on fire, and Hatcher breaks out of his cell, breaks her out, and they escape the asylum. So then Hatcher says the Jabberwocky has been freed. What? And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, apparently the Jabberwocky was buried beneath the asylum, and once the asylum burned down, he was freed and let loose upon Old City. And now they have to find a way to stop him. And they are sent on this journey, going through Old City, trying to find a way to stop the Jabberwocky. And this involves having to visit a couple of the gang leaders and avoiding a lot of the gang leaders. Now, the gang leaders are where it is most tied into Alice in Wonderland, really. The gang leaders are the Carpenter, the Walrus, Cheshire, Caterpillar, and Rabbit. Those are the 5 major gang leaders, and Alice and Hatcher have to fight their way through or not really fight their way, they have to try to avoid those gang members and their little foot soldiers. And their first stop is to a woman named Bess, who ends up being Hatcher's grandmother. And she tells him, you have to go visit Cheshire. He knows how to stop the Jabberwocky. So they go to Cheshire, and they learn that there are magicians in the world. Magicians are the only ones who can stop the Jabberwocky. And he says, and Cheshire, of course, being the Cheshire cat in Alice in Wonderland, but he's not really a cat, has a big smile on his face. He's not trustworthy. He knows everything, but without telling anything. And he tells them that they have to find a magic blade that was forged by a magician that was used to take the magic from the Jabberwocky and trapped him. So thus begins their adventure, searching for the blade to stop the Jabberwocky. I have mixed feelings about this story. Very, very mixed. I'm not going to say it's the best interpretation of Alice in Wonderland I've read. To be 100% honest with you, I don't think this even needed to be an Alice in Wonderland reimagining. I think this actually would have been done better if it had been just a new property, a new characters, new ideas. That's my opinion. Does it work with Alice in Wonderland? I mean, yes, it's easy to create these sort of gangs out of these familiar characters, but overall, I did actually not really enjoy this interpretation. It was okay. If it hadn't been an Alice in Wonderland reimagining, I maybe would have liked it more. There is another book in the series called The Red Queen, or just Red Queen, and I don't know if this book has actually hooked me enough that I want to read it. I just don't know. I guess my problem, and this is going to be, I'm going to put a trigger warning on this, because this is where it starts to get this is where the grittiness comes in. This is where the darker side of the story comes in. So trigger warning to those who don't like sexual assault. Throughout the entire story, one of the main things that these gangs are responsible for are basically taking young girls from their homes, raping them, selling them to men, and having them rape them, making them sex workers. And even Alice was raped by the rabbit, and then she attacked him while he was assaulting her. Now, there's always been a lot of discussions, especially recently, about including as a major part of the story, unless I don't know how to discuss this appropriately when we're just talking about an Alice in Wonderland reimagining. But I think nowadays the issue is that I feel a lot of authors use rape as just an easy way to show that someone is bad, to show that someone is evil. Because in our minds, preying on young women equals evil in our minds, or even on children. And I think I'm not going to say it's a cop-out, but I'm going to say there are better ways of showing the evilness of people without it automatically being, oh, they steal girls and they them. You may not agree with me on this, but it never got uncomfortable in this, but it was just so prevalent. It was a constant fear. It was in every chapter mentioned, and it was like, I understand they're bad. You don't need to keep emphasizing, like, they're raping them, they're kidnapping them, they're hurting them. Like, I get it. You don't have to tell me every time. I guess that's my point, is that it popped up so much. It wasn't graphic in this. Not graphic, but it was just constantly there. And it's like, I don't need to be reminded every chapter that, by the way, don't forget, these are bad men because they women. And the thing is, all of them did it. The only one who didn't do it, I guess, was Cheshire. And I'm like, are all these gangs, how can they all be doing it? Like, you're gonna run out of girls eventually, and also it's like, there's other ways to make money than sex slaves, but like, I kind of wished Caterpillar had been a drug dealer. Like, I think that was it. Caterpillar had a whorehouse, and I was like, no, he should be a drug lord. Come on, that was given to you. He had Alice eat mushrooms. He smoked a hookah. Drug lord. But no, he was a collector of things, and he ran a whorehouse. And I was just like, oh, you missed an opportunity. She could have been the big drug lord of the old city. And then, Walrus, I actually liked the interpretation of Walrus. I don't think he still needed to be a sex maniac, but I liked the idea that he ate the girls. Like, that's terrifying. Even without the fact that he apparently does it while he's assaulting you. Like, that's terrifying in and of itself, is that he eats people alive. Like, I don't even think you needed the other half of that. Like, there were so many ways that it could have been more terrifying without just constantly it being, they're all sex maniacs. They all want to kidnap girls. They all want to sell girls. They're all in the sex trade. Like, that's not how gangs work. They can't all be doing just one thing. Like, whatever. Not that I am not, I don't know anything about gangs. I'm not in a gang. I've never been in a gang. I don't know the inner workings of gangs. But there were some missed opportunities. So yeah. To get to the ending of the book, I'm entering spoiler territory now, so if you don't want any spoilers, make sure you skip to, what side should I put it on? I'll put it on this side today. Skip to this timestamp right here. This one, I'm trying to make a box. My hands will not cooperate. This one right here. I am going to talk about some spoilers. So, here we go. 3, 2, spoilers. So Alice and Hatcher, after visiting Cheshire, they go to Caterpillar to see if he has the blade, because he's a collector. Caterpillar ends up not having it, but he says the one who has it is your old buddy, the rabbit, so you have to go back and face him, Alice. And they head off. They kill the Caterpillar because of the horrors that he's been doing, whereas he runs a whorehouse called Butterflies, and he has taken a girl, broken her legs, starved her to near non-existence, and has sewn butterfly wings on her back. And this atrocity, it's like Alice snaps because of it and kills Caterpillar. And then they escape Caterpillar. They try to go to Rabbit, but they accidentally go to Walrus, to Walrus's place. And throughout this journey, Alice starts to learn that her in fact is a magician. She has magic in her. Which, similar to the Tim Burton movie, she denies until there's no more ability to deny. And she can understand animals, is what I'm getting at. And they were going to avoid Walrus. They were going to sneak through without being seen, but then he is forcing a giant rabbit to fight a man, and she just can't take it anymore. So she says, we have to save the rabbit. And Hatcher gets Walrus's attention because they knew each other in the past, and Alice heals the rabbit, and the rabbit kills Walrus. I know that sounds confusing, but I'm just trying to get through this real quick. After killing Walrus, the Jabberwocky is slowly is catching up to them, killing people, drinking their blood, all this stuff, killing as he goes, and they finally reach Rabbit, and apparently Rabbit was all these gang leaders are magicians. They all have their abilities except for Walrus and Carpenter. We never see Carpenter, by the way, which another missed opportunity. But Rabbit was a magician, but his magic was taken from him because the knife that Alice stabbed into him and took his eye with was actually the magic blade they needed, and it stole the magic from Rabbit, and Rabbit aged quickly, and she threw it into this disgusting river that surrounds Old City that is so putrid and rank that it actually melted the knife into nothing. So the blade is gone. The blade they've been searching this entire book for is gone. But, of course, due to magic voodoo, apparently the magic just moved into Alice. So Alice has the ability to beat the Jabberwock. Rabbit is killed, and then they go outside, and the Jabberwocky is waiting for them. And the Jabberwocky, as you know from many things, is told to be like this big monstrous creature, but he takes the form of a man, and Alice wishes him to death. Let me explain. So apparently, Alice's magic takes the form of wishes. That when she wishes out loud, when she speaks a wish out loud during the day, it comes true. Okay, I can get behind that. I can be fine with that because Alice's mother knew she was a magician because Alice's mother was a magician, and she always told her, "Do not make wishes during the day. You can only do them at night, in bed, and all of that." Because I guess that cancels out the magic. I don't really know. So, Alice wishes the Jabberwocky to become a butterfly in a jar with no holes, and then she puts him in his pocket and says, "I will put you there until I forget about you and you're dead. And no one will ever know about you, no one will ever know that I defeated you. You will just be lost to memory forever." That's the end of the book. She and Hatcher venture outside of the city, they leave the cities, and they go to start a new life together. / to go find Hatcher's child, because I forgot to mention Hatcher, his backstory is that he was kind of the enforcer for Rabbit, but he made a deal with Rabbit because Rabbit, he didn't want to work for Rabbit, but then Rabbit brought a girl around, and Hatcher wanted to save the girl, so he got married to her, and in exchange, he said he would work for Rabbit as his enforcer, and then he got married to the girl, they had a child named Jenny, and Rabbit betrayed Hatcher, killed his wife, took Jenny, and sold her to the east. That's all they say. Sold her to the east. And in a rage, Hatcher killed Rabbit's men, and that's why he was taken to the asylum. And so Alice and Hatcher go off, and at the end of the book they're saying, "We're gonna go find Jenny." I don't know if I want to read the second book, Red Queen. I don't really know. I'm not that interested because I wasn't very happy with this. And if you were, that's fine. Everybody has different tastes. But my main conflicts with this book is that there was missed opportunity with the gang leaders. They didn't all have to be sex maniacs, sex slave sellers. I think that's just an easy cop-out, saying like, "Oh, this is it." I don't want to use the word cop-out, but I used it. I think it's an easy way to just be like, this person's evil. Of course, they're irredeemable because they girls, they kidnap girls, all that. I think there was missed opportunity. Caterpillar could have been the drug lord of Old City. Walrus could have just been this brute of a guy who eats people that piss him off. I don't mind that Rabbit was the sex slave because, you know, in Alice in Wonder, the guy who kidnapped girls and sold them into sex slavery, I didn't mind that because that kind of goes with the White Rabbit, where Alice followed the White Rabbit out of curiosity, and I feel like he could be like, oh, he leads them down this bad path. Okay, that's fine. But it's just that they were all the same thing. I mean, yes, Walrus had a fighting ring in his thing, but ultimately all of them, had something to do with taking girls and selling them or profiting off of assault on them. And I just feel like there was missed opportunities to make those gang leaders really threatening, really more than what they were. And we never even see Carpenter. We see his soldiers, but we never see Carpenter. They briefly talk about him saying like, oh, he was the only true human. He wasn't a magician, but he's weak. And it's like, okay, but I still want to see him. Like, I mean, there's that whole thing about Carpenter and Walrus in the Alice in Wonderland story, like how it could have been great. It could have been great, but I don't know. I just feel like it was fine. It's fine. If you like Alice in Wonderland reimaginings that are darker, grittier, and a little bit, like there was, I'm going to hold to this belief. It would have been better as a separate entity, as a brand new IP, brand new idea, brand new characters, different names. Like, I don't think it needed to be Alice in Wonderland. I don't want to call it lazy writing, but I would love to have seen how this initially started out. Because I know edits, through agents, through publishing houses, stories can change dramatically from when they were first made. So I would be very curious to hear how this book initially began, what the initial writings of it were. But I'm gonna have to give it a lower review grade than I ever like to. I'm giving it a 2 out of 5 stars. I liked Hatcher and Alice's relationship. I thought they were good balances of each other. They did help each other, and they learned to understand each other very well. However, I think there was this constant confusion where Hatcher would be the one to talk. They planned for him to talk, but Alice would always end up being the one talking. And I just feel like, I understand it was to show that she's stronger than everyone thinks she is, but at the same time, I don't know if that actually fit their characters. Take that with a grain of salt, though. I mean, I understand what the author was trying to do. I understand. But Hatcher seemed to just kind of let her do whatever she wanted, even though he warned her all the time. And there was this whole thing about her dressing up like a boy so she wouldn't be attacked. But it ended up being completely pointless because everybody knew she was a girl / all the bosses knew of her because of the scar on her face that Rabbit gave her. So it was kind of like this good intention, but I think we could have thrown this out after the second person mentioned it. But it took, it literally took until they got to Caterpillar for them to be like, all right, this was pointless to be dressed as a boy. And it's like, no, you could have stopped sooner than that, I think. But yeah, this book gets a 2 out of 5 stars from me. If it had been an independent universe, if it had not been an Alice reimagining, I probably would have given it a higher score. But God, maybe I'm sick of reimaginings. Maybe we have finally reached the point where reimaginings, unless they really do something different, and I know you're gonna say, well, she did something different, they're 2 cities and they're gangs. I feel like gangs is an easy thing to do for Alice in Wonderland because there are so many interesting characters that would be great bosses, gang bosses and all that. So I would dispute that you would say that she did something completely different. I dispute it. Maybe I will read the second book, maybe I will check it out just to see where it's going, but I am not interested in it right at this point. I have so many other books I have to read first. Ooh. So yeah, I don't want you to think that it's bad writing either. It's not. The prose is very good. It was easy to follow. The internal monologues of Alice were great. I just didn't like the overall story as a reimagining of Alice in Wonderland. It would have been better as a separate identity, its own identity. And there were a lot of references to things that were really random too. This is the last thing I'll talk about, but there was a giant rat called Nicodemus, and if you don't know, that's from Rats of Nim, and I was just like, that's a random reference. And then they reference Aladdin a lot, and I'm like, that's a random reference. And there's just a lot of random little references in places that I'm just kind of like, what? Why? And then they mentioned Gilgamesh at one point. I'm like, wait, is this the story Gilgamesh? Is that in their universe as well? It just, there are times for references like that in stories. These ones kind of stood out, which is when they're not good. If they stand out when you're reading a book as really out of place, they're not good references. I don't mind the Nicodemus one personally. I thought that was actually, it was weird, but I kind of liked it. I'm not gonna lie. But the other ones were just kind of stood out and la 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 la. Also, there was no Mad Hatter, there was no Dodo, there was no Turtle, there was no Griffin. If you've read the original story, you'll know who that one is. There were no queens in it, although there was kind of hints that maybe the Red Queen was Alice's mother, but I'm sure she's saving those for the second book, hence Red Queen. But, like, there were so many things that, like, I don't know. I'm gonna end here because or else I'm gonna ramble on and on for more. 2 out of 5 stars for me. If you like reimaginings that are dark and gritty and not meant for children, maybe you'll probably like this. I think I'm just sick. I'm sick. I think Alice in Wonderland has been done enough. I think it's time to move on from Alice in Wonderland unless you're really gonna do something different with it. And I mean really different. Like so different that we don't even know it's an Alice in Wonderland reimagining until the end. That's what I want. I don't want it to be obvious. But yeah, I think it's time to go back to some books that are brand new IPs, brand new ideas, and not reimaginings for a while. Especially Alice in Wonderland. I mean, we're beating that one into the ground. And I know it's a very classic and all that, but I need something new. So that has been my review of Alice by Christina Henry. If you liked it, make sure to leave a like, leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Let's see, what's a question I can ask you? Oh, I know. How many of you like teas? Because there was a tea party mentioned. I personally like the fruity teas. Let me know your favorite kind of tea down below. Also, let me know what your favorite Alice in Wonderland character is and whether you think they would make a great gang boss or not. This has been my review of Alice. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will read you later. Bye.